Welcome to Record, Mix and Release, a YouTube series which takes you through the process of recording a song from beginning to end in your home studio and releasing it to the world. And in this episode, we'll be recording bass guitar. Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. And welcome to the second episode in this series where we record, mix and release a song to the world from a home studio. And in this episode, we're going to be preparing for and recording the bass guitar part. Now, if you want to be notified about other episodes and indeed other videos from this channel, all about home recording, DAWs, plugin reviews, gear reviews, that kind of thing, then please do subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you get notified about those other videos. Now, before we get into recording the bass guitar itself, let's take a look at what preparation work I did in my DAW Cakewalk. So virtually all of the preparation work that I'm doing in my DAW is geared towards getting as good a performance from the bass guitar as possible. Now in this song, like many other songs, there's a very close relationship between the bass guitar and the rhythm section. In particular for this song, the bass guitar will be playing on the kick drum and it will be resting on the snare drum. So I wanted to update the work I'd already done in the first episode to more closely reflect musically what will be happening in the song. Now if you remember, in the first episode I laid down a very basic kind of drum track with a hi-hat, kick and snare so that the guitar wouldn't just be playing along with the metronome sound from the DAW. But I've updated that so that more closely reflects what will be happening. Now I don't want you to worry that I'm sort of skipping something here, because in a later episode I'll be going into detail about programming drum and percussion parts. So sort of you'll just have to wait for that. But for now I'll just show you basically what I've done. So I started off by stripping out the original kick and snare and updating the hi-hat part a little bit. So let's go through what I've done there. I'll play the hi-hat part. Sounds like this. Now you can see, as well as actually playing on the quarter beats, have a look at the velocities down the bottom here. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4. There's also some subtle little beats in between, and that creates a kind of a shuffly kind of feel. Have a listen again. And that really helps me with the sort of feel of this song. Now later on there is a section in the song where all of that breaks down and it almost goes down to a section where there's no rhythm section. There's just going to be an organ and a vocal. And I found that that hi-hat is going to be distracting when I'm actually singing that vocal later. So just a bit later on I've put a little different section which is much more basic. Sounds like this. That's in slight preparation for when I come to do that vocal part. Now, what's actually going to be in this song is that it's going to start off with a cajon part, an actual cajon, not a virtual instrument, before the drums come in later. Now, I didn't want to record the cajon yet, so what I've actually done is created the kick and snare drum parts from a virtual cajon sound, and I've put that on this second track down here. Now this is the very important part, because I wanted to musically kind of lay down what the kick and the snare will be doing so that I could lock the bass guitar in with that when I'm actually recording. So I'm just going to go to the part where that comes in, because it's sort of at the end of the first verse of the song that comes in. There's a little fill on the cajon before it goes into the kick and snare part. So have a listen to that. So that represents more musically what I will be playing on an actual cajon later. So the bass guitar can now lock into those parts musically, and that should really help with the performance. The other thing which contributes to the performance you get when recording the instrument is the mix that you get in the headphones. Now, the bass guitar is a really good example of this because in this case, I really want to lock in with that cajon, as I say. So the mix is probably nothing like what the final mix will be for this song. As I say, the cajon is up, it's emphasized fairly loud, and actually the guitar and vocals are down pretty low. They're just there as a kind of a rough guide where I am in the song and the rough feel, but it's really that cajon that I want to lock into, so I've got that up pretty loud. As I say, it will be nothing like the final mix. Now, the other thing I've done, and you really don't have to do this, it's completely optional, is I've quickly thrown some effects on that guitar and vocals. Now, I must emphasize, because these are just temporary tracks, you shouldn't spend much time on this at all. I probably spent about 30 seconds on the guitar. I threw on CLA guitars from Waves, and I used a preset called Acoustic Strombolina. Probably made some minor adjustments, but really spent no time on it at all. It's just so that it sounds comfortable for me to listen to through the headphones, and so that it doesn't irritate me too much when I'm recording. And the same with the vocals. I threw on CLA vocals, used a preset called Talk to Me, and left it at that. You may just sometimes find that you just want to pop a little bit of reverb on the vocal or something along those lines. Don't spend any time on it, but do kind of make it sound sweet enough for you to bear it through the recording process. So finally, I've added a track for the bass guitar itself. Now, I've added a mono audio track to do this. 99.9% of the time, you're going to be recording bass guitar with a mono track, and it's going to be panned directly down the middle. Now, I haven't added any effects at all here, but I have added a plugin in the effects change, and that is just a guitar tuner plugin. Whenever I'm recording either a bass guitar, acoustic guitar, or an electric guitar, I will tend to have a tuner plugin in the effects chain there, so that just from time to time I can double check that the instrument is still in tune, because there's nothing worse than capturing an awesome performance and then discovering afterwards that it's a little bit irritatingly out of tune. So that's a good tip to do that there. There's a few free ones available. I happen to be using a commercial one here, but check out the many free ones available to do that. So I'd like to take a moment to talk about the choices I had in terms of the bass guitar part for this song. Now, if I didn't have a bass guitar, I could have gone ahead and used a bass virtual instrument. There are some very good ones available these days, and I have made a video about it, which you can check out up here, or there will be a link in the description down below. If you're not a bass player or don't have a bass guitar, it's a really good option these days because they can sound very, very authentic. However, I do play the bass a little, and I do have a bass guitar, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now, it's not a particularly expensive instrument, this one, so here's a word of warning. If you're using a budget instrument, do make sure it fulfills at least these three criteria. Number one, make sure it can actually stay in tune. Of course, that goes without saying. Number two, make sure that the intonation is good. Now, that means that it stays in tune as you play different notes all the way up the neck. Now, if you can't set that up yourself, then take it to your local guitar shop and they'll set it up fairly inexpensively. But do make sure that that is set up. And thirdly, I'd like to say, do make sure that the electronics are not noisy or crackling, that kind of thing. That can really ruin a good performance. So I am happy with this bass guitar, and I'm going to go ahead and use it. Now, what I could have done also was plug it into a bass amp and put a mic on that bass amp to record it. However, I've got a couple of problems with that. One, I don't have a bass amp, so that option's kind of out. Second of all, I don't think my neighbours would be overly happy about me playing the bass guitar, which carries very, very well at all times of the day or night. And that's exactly the kind of issues that we do face in a home studio environment. So we have to find ways around it. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is plugging straight into my interface and using a bass amp sim later. And that will give me a sound which I think I'll be pretty happy with if I blend those two signals together. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, and I'm going to go ahead and record that bass guitar part right now. Didn't see me wanting more, and no shoes, he had no
no style. I had the blues, he wore a smile. I asked him how.
Thank you so much for watching this episode in the series. And in the next episode, we'll be adding virtual drums to our song. Now, if you liked this video, then you can show your appreciation by hitting the like button. It really does help me out. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you're notified about other episodes and content from this channel. And I'll see you in the next video.